Every chapter of every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And sometimes coming up with the endings is the hardest part. The island paradise of Buttopolis is a pristine and serene island community. There is a human who lives on it named Jake. And for the last 3,649 days, Jake has diligently poured his heart and his soul into developing the island and making it not only a beautiful place for tourists, but a wonderful home for a thriving community of people. And Jake's adventure in this very world is about to come to an end. Endings are hard, and endings are sad. But every ending represents a new beginning, a new opportunity to make an important decision. As Jake goes about his day, there is a quiet sadness to him. He's not sure how to articulate what he's feeling, but he's known that it's been coming for a long time. He goes about his day, he does critical work as the island representative, and he helps lead the community. He arbitrates disputes, and he successfully tends to countless gardens throughout his home. He says hello to neighbors, knowing that today is the last day that he's ever going to see them. And he goes about and does all of his daily tasks as if he's going to be here tomorrow. When the clock strikes midnight, his island home freezes. He's up and about at this time. He's a bit of a night owl. And so he has the opportunity to explore the island and to see friends frozen. He waves them farewell, knowing that they don't know what's happening, knowing that they can't know what's happening. And he makes his way back to his house. When he steps into his house, his surroundings change and blur, and all of a sudden he's in a place that he has only rarely visited for the last decade. A mystical, extra-dimensional warehouse. When he's in there, he takes a look again at his surroundings, and he sees a video game-like console located in front of a TV. And he goes and begins to play with it. It asks him what he wants to do next once he turns it on. It asks him if he wants to go home, if he wants to continue his journey, or if he wants to make the world of Animal Crossing his new, forever home. It shouldn't surprise anyone that he decides to continue his journey, but he's filled with sadness as he does it. Let's talk about what happens when you finish a jump. Friends, I hope that you are having a wonderful day today. My name is Luciano, and I make videos on the internet. If you are a new friend, I'm so stoked that you've decided to make me a part of your day, even for a short while. And if you are a returning friend, I'm delighted that we get to have the chance to get to know each other just a little bit better. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the phases of a single jump, and I'm going to be doing a big focus on the end phase. Before we go any further, it is worth noting that in the story that I told, someone was using the Animal Crossing jump and they were a island jumper, so they were essentially using the New Horizons sort of mode of play of Animal Crossing, the one from the Nintendo Switch. There actually is an Animal Crossing New Horizons jump that is a work in progress, and this specific jump actually doesn't have an islander origin, but I thought that that would be the Animal Crossing that a lot of people would be the most familiar with, so I went ahead and used that as the basis for the story. It doesn't really matter. This is not a real jumper. That was just a fun little story that I thought would be nice to tell as a way of setting the mood. In this particular video, I want to go over the basic concept of phases of a jump, phases of a jump, and then I want to do a special little look at what it means to end a jump and to continue on your chain, which is the default option that a lot of people are going to be choosing several times before they either end their jump before they either end their chain otherwise, or before they lose interest, which is the real thing that would probably happen to a lot of us after a long enough chain. And that's fine, as long as the story that you have told is fun for you and you have shared it in a way that you are proud of, even if all you are doing is sharing it to yourself. That's the thing that matters. Let's go ahead and talk about the first of the 3 phases. I've talked about phases of jumps before. I'm going to do the briefest skim of how I do them very quickly. So, the first phase of a jump, and it's going to look different between how a real world person going through a chain is going to look at it versus how it's going to be for the jumper in universe, is the build phase. During this time, you are looking at a jump document, you are taking drawbacks, you're selecting an origin, you're taking perks and items, you're doing all of that stuff. That is all of the sort of very gamified aspects of jump chains. You're going to be doing all of that. It should only take a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and say that we are going to be looking at the drawbacks pages for this jump document. There are images of Animal Crossing bugs on those pages, and if that is something that ekes you out, that's super understandable. I'm going to go ahead and tell you to look away, and then I'll tell you when we're done looking at the drawbacks. We're not going to go over them in detail. I'm just going to show the page. Go ahead and look away now before we do anything. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the drawbacks. I'm going to do one super quick run through, not in this video, but if I were designing a build for Animal Crossing, I would initially go through, I would look at the drawbacks, I would select which ones my jumper could handle before I make any purchases, and now you can go ahead and look back on the screen if you were looking away. I would go back, I would select my origin, I would make my purchases, and then I would look once more at drawbacks to see if there's anything I think I can take on with my in-jump stuff. The first time I look at drawbacks, I am looking and I'm thinking about what my jumper can take before they gain any in-universe purchases. So obviously this is going to be very different if my jumper has been to a bunch of jumps and has a ton of stuff. They're going to be able to take on more drawbacks before they go and make any in-universe purchases. But if you are a first jump or if you're doing some sort of lockdown drawback, then that's obviously going to change that process. This particular jump has a drawback limit. I'm going to be honest, one of my home rules for basically all of my jumpers is that I ignore drawback limits. I have the basic philosophy of that if a jumper is willing to suffer for more points, they deserve those points. As long as the drawbacks are in the jump, I don't usually do universal drawbacks or add custom drawbacks, though I'll make exceptions to that depending on the chain. But I have the basic philosophy that if a jumper is willing to suffer, they should be able to get the extra points. So no drawback limits, essentially, for any of my jumpers. Sorry, people who are really into drawback limits. Once my jumper has decided all of their perks and items, they'll take a look at the drawback list again because I let my jumpers design their builds in universe. I let them see physical jump documents and go through and fill them out. They do all of that stuff themselves in universe, though I'll usually try to skip over it some way if I'm writing like a story or doing a video. Once they have done all of that and they have finalized their build, they've taken any extra drawbacks, grabbed any extra purchases, and they are ready to go, they begin the active phase of a jump. The active phase of a jump is when a jump writer, so someone who is doing the chain from the real world perspective, is no longer thinking about the jump document and is instead visualizing their jumper in the actual setting. So in this jump, you are visualizing the jumper in the actual world of Animal Crossing. And it is during this time that your jumper is dealing with daily life, being challenged by drawbacks, making friends, making memories, actually using their perks and items, all of that stuff. By default, you are going to be in most settings for a decade. There are plenty of jumps that are exceptions to this. I've written plenty of jumps that are exceptions to this. There's drawbacks that end a jump earlier or end it later. There's toggles that end a jump later or earlier. There's even a way of doing a jump chain if you go to Generic World Walker, which is a jump by Von Boyd, and do the first jump scenario there, wherein you are not limited by time in a setting. Instead, what you have to do is create a sort of pseudo spark that will allow you to exit the world you're in and go to the next world. And what that process looks like is going to be different for every jumper. It's going to be different in every jump. All of that kind of stuff. But by default, in most jumps, you are going to be in the setting for a decade. You're going to be there for 10 years, and then when the 10 years comes to an end is when this phase of the jump ends. But what this phase is the real world time, or the real lifetime, essentially, for your jumper, where they are in the setting, making friends, making memories, doing all of this stuff. So in Animal Crossing, you would be in your village or in your city, on your island, in your camper, and you would be doing all of the things that the characters in the setting are doing. There are no set objectives in most jumps. There are no necessary missions that you have to accomplish. All you gotta do is just chill in the setting for a decade and then decide what happens next. And again, I say for a decade, but like, I'm being general here. I'm talking about the most common rule sets that people use. So if a jump doesn't say that it has like if a jump doesn't have a specified length of time, if it doesn't have any special rules that say when you can leave, then typically by default, you can pretty safely assume that you're going to be there for 10 years, and then at the end of the 10 years, you are going to enter the end phase. The end phase is the main subject of today's video, and it is the thing that gave me the idea to start this particular thing. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So in my mind, for jumpers in the active phase, they usually have some sort of way of knowing how long their jump is going to last in the active phase. In some cases, I will give them a sort of like gamer ability that has like a sort of countdown clock. In the case of Lalo's Illogical Leaps, one of my newest jump chain stories, the main character has a grimoire that has a countdown clock, and that is ticking down the seconds that are left in the specific jump. That's going to be a thing that continues, at least when Lalo has access to the grimoire. And when that clock strikes 0, when the jump comes to an end, different people have different ways of doing this, but in my head, I like to imagine that the setting freezes and that the jumper has access to essentially either a portal to their warehouse or a console of some sort that allows them to make their decisions. When a jump comes to an end, there are 3 default options, and a jumper has to pick one of them. The jumper could head home, which sends them back to their birth reality or wherever their home is if for some reason in their chain they were able to get a new home dimension. They are able to settle down in the reality that they finished the jump in and make that their new home forever, or they're able to continue their chain. By default, you retain all of your stuff regardless of what you choose, and there is a tradition in some jumps where if you choose to settle down, you get an additional set of points that you can make final purchases with to grab some more perks, items, or even companions. Now, most people are going to choose most of the time to continue their chain. There are also some jumps that have other options, especially end jumps. If you do an end jump and you successfully attain your spark, then jumping is going to, at the very least, look very different for you. You're going to be able to, usually by default, travel from reality to reality, and you're not going to need jump documents anymore. But assuming you don't do some sort of special option like that, odds are most of the time a jumper will probably choose to continue their chain. And that is a very fascinating thing to me. I like to think about what that would look like in terms of like seeing it from the jumper's perspective. The most common way that I write jumps ending is that time freezes, and then somewhere in the reality, if a jumper doesn't have a warehouse, usually the portal will just appear right in front of them. But I said a warehouse, if a jumper doesn't have a home base somewhere, usually the portal will appear just in front of them, and it'll take them to whatever sort of hub they use when they are between jumps, typically a warehouse or something to that effect. But once a jumper has a home base, I like to write out the process of a jumper having a few moments in the frozen reality to look around, say farewell, and then go back to their home, enter their home, and then find the portal or their benefactor or whatever other mechanism they use to logically transition from one jump to the next. My jumpers don't like to end their chains preemptively, and my jumpers also tend to favor long chains, even if they weren't originally asked to go on a chain, because I just really like the concept of jump chains, and a lot of my jumpers have strong self-insert tendencies and traits. That's just the way that I do things. So I will put a lot of myself into my jumpers, and they will make decisions that feel like decisions that I would make. And in some cases, they will have differing levels of meta knowledge. Lalo's Illogical Leaps is one of the first times where I am doing a story where the jumper is completely and fully aware of what a jump chain was and is. He is not a fan of the fact that he wasn't asked to go on a chain, but he is completely accepting of the chain now that he's in it, and he's like, yeah, now that I'm in it, I'm thinking about the future, I'm thinking about where I want to go next, I'm thinking about orders of jumps, and assuming that story doesn't enter a state of hiatus due to me struggling with writing things, that is a story that will probably go on for a while and will feature multiple jumps in a wide range of settings, because if I were asked to go on a real chain, if I were given the ability to go on a real chain, I would definitely go all in, assuming I choose to accept it. The reality is, I don't know if I would accept it if someone was like, hey, you could go on a chain in real life because there's stuff I care about here. But especially if someone is like, yeah, you go on a chain and time freezes in this reality while you are jumping, I definitely think that I would think a lot more strongly about that. If someone is like, oh, you go on a chain but you can never come back, that would probably be a hard no from me. That is not something that I'm into, that's not something that I relish, but that's just my thinking on the matter. Now that you have had some time to hear about the ending phase of a jump and what it means to continue your chain, when this end phase comes to an end, assuming your jumper continues their chain, they are going to start the phase all over again in a different jump. Now, the next place they visit, depending on the mechanics of how your jumper transitions from setting to setting and what it looks like for your next build to be decided in universe, they may not go from Animal Crossing to like Harvest Moon, if that's their next jump, immediately. They'll probably spend some time in their warehouse or in some sort of neutral other place while their build is decided. This may give them an opportunity to converse with their companions, new and old, including ones who were not active in this jump or slash in the latest jump that they were in. It may give them an opportunity to talk to their benefactor. There's also other things that some people could have. There's options that allow someone to go to their native reality for some time between jumps, so that way they can experience the real world while they can experience the non-jump world with their stuff for a little bit while their build is getting decided, or just take a vacation. All that kind of stuff is super doable. In my jumps, the way that it most often works in my chains is that the jumper spends a little bit of time in their warehouse or in some other warehouse-like place. They'll design their builds and then they'll get teleported to their next jump. Usually this process will take a couple of hours of time from their point of view, and when it's over, usually the realities that they were in will stay frozen, because I actually like doing standard jump chain rules and assumptions, and that's one of the things that a lot of people just sort of assume. That's a sort of jump chain tradition, that when you leave, that reality is frozen until you either spark or end your chain otherwise, including failing, at which point time resumes in that reality. And if you're there, you get to hang out with your friends from before, and if you're not there, you don't get to do that. All that kind of stuff. I hope that this video has been helpful and engaging for thinking about what jump chain endings mean for you. I said jump chains, but I meant like jumps. But I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope that you're having a wonderful day, and I would love to hear what you think in the comment section. Bye-bye, everyone!